100,000 earthquakes are recorded every year. Most of them are not noticeable and do not cause any damage. A few of them cause a lot of damage and suffering. Nevertheless, they are a part of life on Earth. And although they have existed for a long time, today's way of life with many buildings makes them some of the most dangerous natural disasters. It's worth taking a closer look at this natural phenomenon before we dive into the depths of the rabbit hole. To understand earthquakes, researchers need to understand plate tectonics. We humans live on the Earth's crust. It is about 35 to a maximum of 70 kilometers thick and is also called the lithosphere. This Earth's crust is not fixed for a specific reason. It is not made of a single piece, but rather of 7 large continental plates and about 50 smaller tectonic plates. The 7 large plates are called the Pacific, Antarctic, Australian, African, Eurasian, North American, and South American plates. The precise count of the approximately 50 minor tectonic plates remains uncertain. All these tectonic plates float on the next, more fluid layer, the asthenosphere, which is part of the Earth's mantle, figuratively speaking, like ice flows on the sea. But why exactly are the plates in motion? The answer to that is not based on direct measurements from inside the Earth. The temperatures are simply too hot for that. However, today's science assumes that, for example, a so-called convection current leads to the movement of the plates. That's a huge horizontal vortex of magma. The plates lying on top of it are then driven in one direction, several centimeters per year. This has also caused our continents to shift over millions of years. The continents rest on the Earth's plates. The borders of the continents can be seen from space, but the borders of the Earth's plates cannot. The map of Earth's plates is essentially the world map within the Earth's interior. A pioneer of plate tectonics was the German climatologist and polar researcher Alfred Wegener. In 1915, he developed the theory of continental drift, meaning that the Earth's crust consists of several plates and moves a few centimeters each year. With modern measurement methods, this theory is now considered confirmed. Nowadays, satellite technology allows us to determine the movements of the plates quite precisely. Although the plates move so slowly, collisions between them cause earthquakes. If even a small object like a car hits a wall at walking speed and creates a noticeable jolt, you can probably imagine what happens when objects covering several million square kilometers collide with each other. The Earth's plates can move toward each other, past each other, or away from each other. A collision can create a mountain range. For example, the Himalaya mountains were formed in this way between the Indian and Eurasian continental plates. But even when they move past each other, they can easily get stuck and enormous tension builds up. When this tension is released, earthquakes occur. The measure of earthquake strength is the magnitude, and it is measured with a seismometer. What you definitely should know is that the scale is logarithmic with a base of 10. This means that a magnitude 7 earthquake is 10 times stronger than a magnitude 6 quake and 100 times stronger than a magnitude 5 quake. Since it has been possible to record the magnitude, the earthquake in Chile with a magnitude of 9.5 is the strongest that has been measured. That doesn't mean that the most people died in that event. There are many factors that influence this. International organizations estimate that the earthquake in Haiti in 2010 with a magnitude of 7 caused between 200,000 and 500,000 deaths. However, there can also be other reasons for an earthquake. Volcanism can also be a cause of earthquakes. Furthermore, there can be collapse earthquakes, which occur when cavities in the ground collapse. Interestingly, such things can also be triggered by humans, for example through drilling and digging. And so we come to the second, perhaps even more exciting part of the video. In this fascinating world, we also examine artificial earthquakes, which are occurring with increasing frequency. It's been known for a long time that the balance of forces in the Earth's crust can be disturbed by mining, drilling, and especially reservoirs, and that this can lead to serious earthquakes. As early as 1880, the so-called mining subsidence was known in the Ruhr area, which refers to the sinking of the ground caused by coal mining. Starting in 1907, the world's first monitoring system for man-made earthquakes was installed in the Ruhr area. It was first proven in the 1970s that injecting water into the ground can trigger earthquakes. Large amounts of chemically contaminated water were to be disposed of and were deliberately injected underground. In the Denver region, from 1962 to 1965, water was injected at a depth of 3.5 kilometers. This triggered numerous earthquakes. The interesting thing is, not only during the injection, but also years later. Since then, man-made earthquakes have often occurred all over the world, with significant magnitudes. In southern Europe near reservoirs, in Germany, the Netherlands and Poland, for example, mining was the main cause. With this type of earthquake, a distinction is made between induced and triggered earthquakes. This distinction makes sense with regard to plate tectonics, because if it can be proven that an earthquake was definitely man-made, the question remains, how large is the human contribution? Assuming it wasn't intentional. A triggered earthquake occurs when there has already been tension between the tectonic plates for centuries. So such an earthquake would have happened anyway, but maybe much later. An induced earthquake, on the other hand, would not have occurred if humans hadn't done anything. Triggered earthquakes can therefore become very strong, just like natural earthquakes, since the only difference is the premature triggering of earthquakes with already existing tensions. In most cases, however, induced earthquakes are not as strong and are hardly noticeable. Sometimes, however, they lead to large destructive earthquakes with magnitudes greater than 5. Such induced earthquakes occur when mechanical stresses build up in the rock of the Earth's crust, or when the shear strength in the rock is changed by injected fluid, as in the mentioned case in Denver in the 1970s. There are loads, for example, from the weight of water in reservoirs and unloading from mining. An incredible case is the one from Sichuan in China in May 2008. The earthquake was probably the most devastating reservoir-induced earthquake, with a magnitude of 7.9. This showed how serious human intervention can be. 90,000 people lost their lives and economic damage of more than 40 billion United States dollars occurred. It is now believed that it was caused by a large dam. The probability is very high, said the chief engineer of the investigation team of the Geological Office of Sichuan Province. The earthquake could be felt as far away as Beijing, which is 1,500 kilometers away. You can read the exact physical explanation. Induced earthquakes are therefore a serious problem, as are triggered earthquakes. Now let's look at the most recent case. The earthquake in Turkey and Syria is a catastrophe. 2 severe earthquakes that were even felt in Baghdad, Cairo, and throughout the entire Middle East. Experts believe that tension built up between the plates over a long period of time, and it was basically only a matter of time before an earthquake would occur. Certainly, deficiencies in the construction industry also influenced the extent of the disaster. Nevertheless, some people believe that some unusual things happened during this earthquake. The earthquake was artificially induced. Are we at that point? Do tectonic weapons exist? Even in Germany, these rumors have now reached us. We wouldn't be interested if we ignored this theory. Earthquake wars are associated with the high-frequency active auroral research program facility in Alaska, which was claimed to emit high-energy radio or microwaves that can cause earthquakes. We listen to all claims, no matter how ridiculous they may sound. Western powers are said to have deliberately caused the earthquake to punish Turkey for the current situation in NATO. 9 countries are said to have closed their diplomatic missions in Turkey shortly before the earthquake. This actually happened. However, the official reason cited was security concerns following Quran burnings in Sweden and Denmark. This episode of The Simpsons from a few years ago is also often cited, in which a ship is sent to the area where the earthquake recently occurred.
We must get these Season 1 Northern Exposure DVDs to Kahramanmaraş.
A few days earlier, a United States warship arrived in Istanbul, which is somehow said to have triggered the earthquake. This ship is said to have appeared during a previous earthquake as well. There are definitely some interesting predictions from The Simpsons that people like to talk about. However, coincidence can't be ruled out. The show likes to play around with theories like that. Fitting the theme, there's also this episode where strange people and reptilian creatures are found deep underground. And, very interestingly, an earthquake machine. But according to many experts, it's impossible to trigger the earthquake in Kahramanmaraş from Istanbul. The technology would have to be much more advanced than what we have today. What can the HAB facility actually do? A frequently discussed question. The original military program of the United States was officially handed over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks in 2014. It is claimed that the basis for it is the earthquake machine of the Croatian-American genius Nikola Tesla. Tesla once said, if you want to understand the universe, then think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. He claimed that he had developed a device with adjustable frequency with which he could create earthquakes no bigger than a baker. For example, Zweites Deutsches Fernsehen reported on it and explained the interesting principle behind it. His device could create resonance in objects. When something is stimulated at its natural frequency, it responds with a resonance frequency. This frequency would have to be amplified by a transmitter. This means that, in theory, any object can be destroyed if it is made to vibrate sufficiently, so to speak. In the report, it is tested on a wine glass. He is said to have tested it on a house under construction. After a few minutes, the building is said to have shaken. Within 10 minutes, he could have destroyed it. And he would have needed less than an hour to destroy the Brooklyn Bridge. The police were called. They broke into his lab and Tesla destroyed the device with a hammer. In 1908, an unexplained phenomenon occurred in Siberia, the so-called Tunguska event. A massive explosion, a bright light, a shockwave. Even from 500 kilometers away, the explosion was clearly perceived. Over 60 million trees are uprooted and animals are burned. But no people lost their lives because the region was uninhabited. Simulations showed 1,000 times the explosive power of the Hiroshima bomb. At the time, this event was linked to the experiments of Tesla, who dreamed of wireless energy transmission through the ionosphere. He was a physics magician who revolutionized the United States electricity market, invented the remote control, and experimented with high-frequency currents, X-rays, and artificial weather. Only he was believed capable of something like that. However, a proven explanation remains elusive. Today, it's difficult to separate true facts from pure theories on topics like these. Since it's not entirely clear what happened to all of Tesla's documents after his death, there is speculation that the American government found the foundation for the high-frequency active auroral research program facility through Tesla. Many conspiracy theories circulated about the devastating 2010 Haiti earthquake. For example, it was said that there are supposed to be large oil reserves between Cuba and Haiti. The earthquake is said to have enabled the military occupation of the country by United States troops. While many believe that much about high-frequency active auroral research program is just conspiracy theories, some serious scientists claim things that contribute a lot to these rumors. The physical foundations of the high-frequency active auroral research program project were researched by the scientist Bernard Eastland. He even holds patents for the high-frequency active auroral research program project's technology. He put forward the thesis that high-frequency active auroral research program is capable of influencing global communication, the weather, and human thoughts. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program facility has been a long-standing topic, not limited to Turkey. The European Parliament held a hearing on this topic in 1998. There are actually some interesting points in the resolution proposal. The European Parliament calls on the European Union to ensure that the new so-called non-lethal weapon systems and the development of new weapon strategies are covered and regulated by international agreements. Furthermore, the European Parliament considers HAARP to be a global issue due to its far-reaching environmental impacts and calls for the legal, ecological and ethical implications to be examined by an independent international body before further research and experiments take place. Regrets the repeated refusal of the United States government to send a representative to the public hearing or the subsequent meetings of its competent committee regarding the effects of the research program on high-frequency radiation currently being conducted in Alaska. Around 28, the European Union Parliament calls on the STOA steering group to give its consent for the scientific and technical evidence from all available research findings to be examined in order to determine more precisely the nature and potential hazards that high-frequency active auroral research program poses both to the local and global environment, as well as to human health in general. Although high-frequency active auroral research program is located in the remote forests of Alaska, it is not like Area 51, where no one is allowed in. You can read measurement results and data on the homepage. Read up on. And possibly, after the decision of the European Parliament, there is an open house day every year where you can take a look at everything. According to many experts, the apparent transmission power of HAARP is too weak to cause such things. It's clear that if something like this works, it's not done in a heavy-handed way. The claim is also not that an entire tectonic plate can be moved, but rather that it is targeted at specific places where there was already tension, to somehow resolve these tensions. Of course, there are also experts who claim that this is complete nonsense, but that an explosion could have triggered the earthquake. They also take into account the fact that the depth at which the earthquake occurred was relatively shallow compared to other cases, which, by the way, generally increases the destruction caused by an earthquake. In many videos taken during the earthquake, flash-like lights can be seen. These lights were believed to be caused by the high-frequency active auroral research program attack using high-frequency radiation. It was not the first time that such lights have appeared during an earthquake. That's why science assumes that such earthquake lights can occur during a quake. However, no explanation has been fully proven so far. One assumption, for example, is that the great tension of the plates builds up an electric charge which can cause lightning to occur. A 2014 study exists about this. Conclusion of the video. Opinions on what the Habanlage is capable of vary widely. There is absolutely no evidence that the earthquake in Turkey was caused by humans. It is definitely possible to artificially create earthquakes by human hands. The only question is, which methods are now possible? It's probably sad that this video has to be about whether artificial earthquakes are possible instead of whether we could prevent them in the future. You should keep this tendency in mind. It's unclear how advanced technology is today. The same doesn't apply to everyone. Of course, advanced war technologies are not immediately presented to the whole world in order to maintain a power advantage over other countries. We can't assume that it will remain uninteresting as a weapon of war. What makes an artificial earthquake more cruel than an atomic bomb? The world is a diverse place. It can be so cruel that those affected can hardly comprehend the ruthlessness. On the other hand, it can even create moments that make you feel like you'll never die. Since the beginning of time, people have been deceived by the beautiful sights, are almost blinded by love, and are ultimately surprised by death. They could have noticed her game long before and thought beyond the world.